Hello, my family. My name is Chris. I am your home gamer dad, and welcome back to the next readings for Final Girl Killer Lore, where instead of going through any of the feature films from Final Girl, I will be taking a look at the vignettes that you would get from series 1, 2, and 3. The terror awaits. Murderous birds from the skies, ravenous zombies from underneath, and when cheating fate doesn't go your way. If you're not familiar with the vignettes for Final Girl, they are mini expansions for the game, adding a brand new killer and Final Girl to your mix. You are still going to need the core set. You're still going to need at least one feature film for any one of these terrors in order to land on. Now then, as I recommend, turn down the lights, turn up the volume, and make sure you're in a safe space, because danger could come from anywhere. Above you, below you, or anywhere around you.
Ready?
Terror from above. No one knows what caused a storm of birds to descend on a small bay town a few years back. But since it happened, officials and scientists have been trying to determine why. Witness accounts from the few survivors indicated thousands and thousands of birds descending on the area. Their activity ranged from gathering and being a general nuisance to outright attacking and killing people. It hasn't happened since, and maybe it won't ever happen again, but people are fearful. One person that survived the incident knows why it happened. Here is the story. Rami, Juanita, and Maria traveled to a remote area in the mountains of South America just a few days before the birds attacked. They didn't realize it fully until it was too late, but they were the reason for the attack. The trio paid for a guide trip into the mountains to learn about ancient cultures long ago. Their guide pointed out one cave and, in an almost daring way, advised them never to go in the cave. The friends exchanged excited looks that said, "We are so going into that cave." That night, they slipped away from the hotel with a few supplies and headed to the cave. Maria was having second thoughts. "I'm not sure we should go in," but ultimately was convinced to follow by Rami, whom she had a secret crush on. They descended in the cave for 15 minutes and were beginning to have doubts. But just then, the cave opened into a large room with an extremely high ceiling. So high, in fact, a totem just behind an altar across the room towered upwards so far the top could not even be seen and was blanketed in darkness. The totem was majestic and awesome and featured birds with beaks and eyes of all sizes and shapes, and some even with wings sprawling from the back of the totem. Some words were scribbled on the front of the altar, some ancient text. Vecien devia lasciel nos rakane par Ashala, a warning in a tongue long forgotten, which translates to, "Mischief here below shall bring terror from above." On the altar were 3 bowls, each containing an item. The first, a diamond ring. Maria was drawn to its beauty and had a vision of Rami slipping it on her finger. Unable to control herself, Maria took the ring in hopes that one day that vision would come true. Rami, noticing none of that, was holding a small fishhook he picked up from the second bowl. It was unlike any fishhook he'd ever seen, with multiple barbs on the back. He had a vision of becoming a world-class sports fisherman and, like Maria, pocketed the item. Juanita knew something was wrong when she saw the trinket in the third bowl. It was a necklace with a one-of-a-kind pendant her mother had given her before she passed away. Sadly, Juanita had lost it during a move and was never able to find it. Her guilt was pressing her to take the necklace before her. But how could it be her necklace? She turned back to leave without it, sobbing. "She wants that," Maria said quietly to Rami as she nodded towards the necklace. "Okay, I'll bring it, and we can surprise her with it later," Rami replied, pocketing the necklace. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise, sort of like the sound of a wave crashing to shore from the darkness above. The first bird came into view, quickly followed by hundreds more. "Run!" Rami shouted. Thousands of birds flew after them and attacked. The 3 friends dashed through the cave as quickly as they could. When they emerged from the mouth of the cave after a long and violent chase, they barely survived. The birds were suddenly gone. seemingly sucked back into the caves as if by a vacuum. Bleeding from multiple wounds, the friends gasped and fell to the ground. Suddenly, the pain subsided, and the wounds began to close up, and their skin repaired itself right before their eyes. They couldn't help it. They all started laughing uncontrollably. It felt like a dream, but there they were. Remy reached into his pocket and slowly raised the pendant in front of Juanita. She grabbed it, and in the same motion wrapped her arms around Remy as tears fell. "Thank you," she said before kissing him passionately. It was a surprise to each of them, and Maria glared as Remy kissed Juanita back. "Ahem," she said, clearing her throat. The rest of the vacation was relatively uneventful, and the three friends returned home. They didn't really notice until a few days later, but the bird presence in their small town was growing each day. The first attack occurred less than a week later. The friends got separated, but all witnessed different horrors as the nightmare unfolded. They each were looking for each other, but were not able to find one another. Each of them noticed that while the birds were attacking everyone around them, the birds always left them alone. But slowly, one by one, all of the residents were either killed or fortunate enough to escape the town. For some reason, the birds needed everyone else dead or gone before they turned on their true targets. But finally, it was just them. Remy and Juanita found each other first. At the moment, they were safe, but the birds seemed to be getting restless, flapping their wings occasionally and letting out a caw every minute or two. Maria spotted them just as they embraced and shared a romantic moment. She stopped in her tracks and said a goodbye they would never hear, and dropped the diamond ring on the ground in poetic fashion. She turned and left the town, never looking back. Remy and Juanita saw Maria just before she had gone from view, and yelled out for her. At that moment, the birds lifted in the air and began to circle. A funnel formed in mere seconds, and just like the twisters you'd seen when a tornado touches down, this one, made out of birds, touched down. The only good thing about what happened was that their deaths were quick. The birds picked up the hook and the necklace from among their bones, and the ring from the ground just up the road where Maria had dropped it, and were gone from the town, as fast as they had come. Terror from the grave. A letter to my newborn. Son, I hope you are one day old enough to read this. I may not be around when you do, if you do, but I have to tell you the truth about what we know. Probably more for myself than you, but that is how it is now. We have to stay busy to stay sane. The dead have risen. Everyone wants to know why, how it happened, but we have no answers. The only thing we can do is survive. Each day, hour, minute, second, one at a time. Protect ourselves and the ones we love. It shouldn't have happened like it did. They're slow. They're easy to kill. But their sheer numbers, their collective resiliency, their ability to multiply by killing the living, it is something that we are struggling to contain. Hordes of them now walk the land. Boarding up and staying put only works for so long. If you can find a secluded place their taint has not yet touched, you might be able to live in peace for a few days or weeks. We are living on hope, and it's running out. We are tired. The world is gone. We, the living, now coexist with the dead. Not by choice, but by necessity. Kill if and when you must, but never believe you are safe, for there are always more. Love, Dad. Terror from Destiny. Gabrielle watched in horror as everyone around her, strangers and friends alike, were ripped asunder by the destruction that tore through the cabin of the airplane as it flew towards Miami, 30,000 feet above the ground. Tommy, the rebel who tried so hard to be rebellious that it completely defeated the purpose, was engulfed in flames. His spiky hair ignited like a child's birthday cake candle. Agnes, the bookworm with a heart of gold, was sucked through the gaping hole in the plane's fuselage, disappearing into the black void beyond without even making a whimper. Mia, goth girl extraordinaire, screamed and screamed and screamed until a jagged piece of metal flying through the cabin took her head and the heads of everyone around her clean off, French Revolution style. Caleb, Gabby's once-upon-a-time crush, had his head crumpled like a soda pop can by a service cart that not 5 minutes earlier was being pushed through the aisles by an overly chipper flight attendant. And Sandra, Caleb's cheerleader girlfriend, the prom queen to his prom king, was there 1 second and gone the next. Her entire row of seats vaporizing in a fiery explosion. Gabby barely registered each of her friends' brutal deaths as the air around her bloomed with fire, and she felt her skin melting off her face before everything went completely black. Then she woke up, standing in the security checkpoint of the airport, about to place her shoes on the x-ray machine's conveyor belt, and began screaming at the top of her lungs. Airport security, naturally, refused to let the screaming college student and her 5 friends on their way to spring break in Miami through the checkpoint, resulting in all of them missing their flight. Tommy, Agnes, Mia, Caleb, and Sandra were fuming, absolutely furious with Gabby for ruining their plans, until the announcement came over the airport loudspeaker that all flights had been canceled due to an in-air explosion of flight TN 4656 on its way to Miami. Everyone thought they were lucky. Everyone thought Gabby's insane vision in the middle of the airport security line had been a blessing in disguise. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief that they hadn't been on that plane. That was until Tommy accidentally stepped on his kid sister's tricycle in the driveway, falling on his back and pushing it out into the road where a passing truck swerved to avoid it, careening into Tommy's front yard and slamming into the old maple tree his mom has been bugging his dad for years to cut down. The maple tree that only needed a small push, conveniently provided by the runaway pickup, to tip over with a crack and land on Tommy's head, squashing it flat like a rotten orange. Then, Agnes died in a freak kitchen accident where one hand got caught in the blender and the other in the garbage disposal, ripping her arms off in opposite directions. The company that made the blender promised in its infomercial that the Blendmaster 666 could shred a lead pipe if you wanted it to. A human arm was a piece of cake. Very quickly, Gabby figured out that her friends were dying in the order that they had been fated to die on the plane. Some power from beyond the grave, call it death, fate, or destiny, was taking them one by one, and it was up to her and her alone to figure out who was next and save them from a fatal freak accident. But who was next? And could she get to them in time before the long arm of destiny claimed another victim? If she couldn't save her friends, she knew she was doomed herself. Destiny has been cheated, and it wanted its due. And thus closes out another Final Girl Killer Lore reading. Let me know what you think of these vignettes down in the comment section below. Did you know about their backstory? Did you read through their lore book and through their various campaigns within each one of these? Have you played as them or are interested in picking them up? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and ideas about these 3 little boxes that pack so much into the game down below. The vignettes are sold individually. The lore books are always picked up for each of the bonus features for every one of the series. And at this point, as the new series comes out, new vignettes will come out as well. As they are released, I'll see about pulling them together to do another reading for you in the future. That means in order not to miss my next Final Girl video where I will be starting play sessions or any other video I put out for you to enjoy, be sure you are subscribed to the Home Gamer Dad. If you wish to support the channel even further, there are ways to do that down in the description section below. But as always, your view, your like, sharing this video, commenting, and of course subscribing to the Home Gamer Dad go a long way into helping the channel grow and for me to put out more videos like this for you to enjoy alone in the dark. Thank you once again. Take care of yourselves and each other. We are family forever, gaming together. Our paths are now intertwined. Our fates now linked. So let us make sure we work together to make the most out of the time we have. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one.